Welcome to the Write Good Books podcast, the audio companion to WriteGoodBooks.com, with your host Jason Bougger.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Jason. I'm joined by our co-host, Scott Michael Childers. It's good to have you, and this week, how are you today? I should ask. I should be polite to our co-host.
That's a very nice detail. Thank you for asking. I am fine.
See, he is fine. I shall write, Scott is fine. Today we're talking about details and descriptions. And as you can tell from that intro, this is my weakest part of writing fiction or nonfiction podcasts. I'm pretty bad with details, so I might just send it over to you first and have you talk about details a little bit, and then maybe I'll talk about what I do wrong and see if that helps anybody who's listening today.
Okay.
But we'll talk about details and descriptions and how they can help or hurt your story. So what do you think?
We can talk about characterization and plot and all of that type of stuff. There's only so many types of stories to tell. And what makes each one different is the details, right?
Yeah.
So this is what is making your story different than any other hero's journey or monomyth or whatever, base plot line it is, right? It's the details that make it your tale.
Yeah, and what you said just made me realize I was kind of using details and descriptions interchangeable. They are not at all.
Yeah. So in your descriptions of things may be highly detailed. They may not be very detailed at all. It kind of depends on a few things. One is genre expectation.
Right.
Another is your desire for pacing for the book or for the moment that you're writing or your short story or whatever. And then some various other places. But let's talk about genre expectations first, right? If you're writing epic fantasy, they're epic. They have a huge word count. Why? There's a lot of description. There's a lot of detail. If you're writing a thriller, some of the detail doesn't need to happen.
Right. Because you're focused on the action,
Exactly.
not the setting.
In mysteries, those details sometimes can make a big difference in the reader's feeling at the end of reading a mystery. It's like, oh, all the information was there, I just didn't notice it, versus they never showed me anything and this came out of the blue.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So the level of detail, the amount of description, what genre you're trying to hit really makes a difference. Horror, right? There are certain things in horror that you do not want to describe because it takes away from the even worse things a person could dream up.
Right. You just want to plant enough detail to have the vision appear in the reader's head.
Yeah, absolutely.
Plus, if you start listing detail in, say, gory horror or just describing say, a ghost in detail, that does take away from the reader's, so much suspense is built on what the reader sees coming.
Yeah, and you mentioned another thing, too, that kills the pacing of a scene. You mentioned thriller earlier. Absolutely, I agree. If you're looking for fast-paced action, imagine a car chase. You're not describing every single detail in the store windows as they roll up the street. You're trying to do quick. You're trying to do fast. And even that, the amount of detail or lack of detail in that scene kind of gives you a hint that you're going faster than the mind can process the stuff they're seeing.
Right. The point of view characters are not looking out the window watching the trees go by.
Right. And so the pacing, if you have an incredibly detailed scene, the pacing, the reading, it's going to slow way down.
Right.
And sometimes that is great. Sometimes that's what you want. You want, again, the expectations too. I know people, when they read, they want a thick book and they want to chew it. They want to spend time and get all of that descriptive world building into their system.
They want to feel like they're standing there looking at the horizon of the fictional world and taking in all the details.
Right.
Where someone else might want to just say, just tell me it's a tree. You don't have to tell me how tall it is.
Right. And that's the thing. And in other places, it's going to be a slog. And people aren't going to want to go through all that detail because they're expecting action.
Right.
They're expecting character interaction. They're expecting witty dialogue.
Yeah.
So part of it is writing for your audience.
Yeah.
I'm not going to deny that. Part of it is deciding how fast do you want people to go through your story. I've read 2 books recently. They're both sci-fi tales. They're both about the same number of pages. One I got through really quickly. The other one took a little bit of time. Different experiences.
Yeah.
Both great books.
You know,
But
yeah, it's different style of telling. I'll see that on Theme of Absence. I'll read 2 short stories that have nearly the exact same word count. One I'll just read by in a minute or 2, and the other one might take 5-10 minutes to really take it all in.
So that's one thing. We've kind of the big picture about why it matters for your descriptions and how detailed they are. It really does change things. And you could use it as a change of pace inside a larger piece. There are maybe parts where you want to get that feeling of action.
Right.
And so you cut down on the description. You cut down on the detail. People get through that faster. And so it increases the pace. Maybe increases some excitement level for something.
The mood.
Yeah. And then there's other times you want to slow it down. And sometimes you want to slow it down to increase dread.
Right.
Or to give readers a break.
Yeah.
Before you go through the next adrenaline rush. So.
Right. Give a sense of peace if they're at the end of a scene.
The eye of the storm.
Yeah, there you go. It really does depend on what your readers expect and your genre more than anything, and your ability to write.
Yeah. Your ability to pull off a detailed description also matters.
So on that, I guess I'll talk real quickly about my weaknesses when it comes to description, because I think these are common weaknesses everyone has. My biggest problem is all of a sudden you're doing a list. You're not writing anymore. You're just kind of doing a checklist of there's the brown door, there's the brown table, there's the white wall, there's a bookshelf behind you.
The person sat there with blue eyes and black hair.
And what you're writing has no relevance at all, and it just pulls the reader out and says, hey, I'm telling you a story, I'm not showing you a scene.
That detail thing, if you're doing it like that, it's a lost opportunity.
Right.
Because how you describe things, I think we talked about this in the perspective episode as well, how you describe things also sets tone. Depending if you're doing first person or third person, it could be used as a character point. Right? If you're doing first person, what is it that they are noticing? And how do they feel about it? How do they react to it? Really can be a characterization point. If I came into a room like the one that we're recording in now, my eyes are going to the bookshelves.
Right.
Because that's my background. But if I have my father-in-law, he'll come in and he'll look up and look at the light fixtures, right? Because he's into house building and that type of thing. That's his background. So what is it that's noticed first? What is it? What words are used to describe it? Yeah. Especially in a first-person tale.
Yeah.
Could really make a difference.
Yeah, you can really help show a character's personality by what you describe first. I haven't thought of that. That's really pretty neat. I look at the paneling when I first come in here because we just got done paneling our basement. Otherwise, it would have been the bookshelf.
So what type of things are we talking about when we say detail and description can help flavor the text? What type of things are we talking about besides just not doing a checklist?
Right. You want to show details that will bring out the realism of your setting. You don't want to bring out too many, though. And you want to try to keep them relevant as you can. I've had rejection letters tell me that I don't have enough detail to my world building. I don't know where I was going with that, but that's just a point I'm throwing out there. So by that, to me, that tells me that the editor says, I'm not telling you enough about just what the setting looks like and the climate of the world, the sounds, the smells.
So the action is taking place in just kind of this bland white room.
I'm leaving too much to the reader. And you need to make your reader work a little bit, but you don't want your reader to do all of the work. And by using details, you give them enough to work on? I say with a question mark.
I think, yeah, you're giving them some starting points towards things. And you are pointing towards these are the things that make this place and this time and this situation unique.
Right.
Again, going back to that whole, these are the things that make your story different than anyone else's.
Yeah.
And so if you leave it blank and it's an epic fantasy, people might be throwing in Tolkien, right?
Right.
The way they envision Tolkien, or even now, the movies.
Yeah.
And not necessarily a bad thing, but then they start looking for more connections between you and Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, it's like, well, this is just a Lord of the Rings ripoff.
Yeah.
Because their mental image is now so focused on something that they've already built.
Yeah.
Having those details in there differentiates your piece from other pieces. And your characters from other characters. If you switch point of view characters, the detail descriptions are going to change too.
Right.
Like we talked about earlier, Jason and I are going to see different things. We're going to use different words to describe things. And here's in this room, this is a room in the office that I work in. So I'm going to describe it with more emotional attachment.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's a part of my day-to-day
And then
place.
I might describe it from a functionality. Well, this is where we sit to podcast, and
Yeah. And that is the seat that Scott always sits in.
yeah.
Well, believe it or not, when I'm having other meetings, I don't sit in this seat that I'm sitting in now.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So again, point of view, especially that first person.
Yeah. We talked mostly about setting. Details also in science fiction, a writer may need to use a lot of details about how the equipment works, or throw in a bunch of hard science fiction that's over my head. It's like if you want to pile on genre-specific details, you really are writing towards a certain audience.
Well, again, I think, yeah, you're right. When we talked about genre expectations,
Yeah.
You're writing has a target, even if it's you're writing for yourself. So you're writing with a level of detail that you would expect. And then
Yeah.
if it sells with that, great. If not, the editor will tell you.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. When you're doing details, let's say you're doing third person,
All right.
do you talk about emotional responses to the description? Or is it strictly, your narrator?
Yeah. With third person, I typically do limited third person, so that point of view character, I would throw in some. Not as much as first person, but I think that would be appropriate.
Oh, okay.
Something to really think about, though. How do you do it without sounding cheesy?
Well,
You say, I guess,
sometimes cheesy is appropriate.
oh
though.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I've never written romance or read romance. Maybe that is cheesy. Or maybe that is good.
Well, and I think that is something that you would probably need to take your piece and run it through beta readers or
Yeah.
editors to make sure you're not entering the purple prose
Yeah.
type of situation.
No, but I think it really is important to show when certain objects in the background trigger an emotional response from a character.
Well, and another thing is, what you point out could also be used as foreshadowing.
Right.
So you don't have to do character actions as the foreshadowing. What's the Chekhov's gun, right? You introduce a gun on the mantelpiece in the first act, and it's used in the third act, roughly speaking.
Right.
Right? So you're putting in the pieces through your descriptions, what you choose to detail,
Yeah.
what they choose to notice, and then you surround it with other details. So it doesn't stick out. It's like, hi, I'm important.
Right,
Remember me.
right.
So that's important too. And there is one pet peeve I have where, and this is in first person, they will describe how something feels, even though they've never, as in physical feeling,
Like if they're touching.
even though they've never touched the object.
Oh.
Right? It's like, that bed is so soft. From a detective who just entered
Oh, yeah.
It's like, did you touch the bed? Like our previous discussion about situationally appropriate dialogue, they're describing something that they themselves have never experienced.
Yeah.
Now you can say, that looks soft. Or the pillowy comforter,
And it's the same thing with a limited third-person narrative. Your point of view character shouldn't be describing something they've never interacted with.
Yeah.
I mean, you as the writer shouldn't be describing in detail something your point of view character has never seen, I guess is a better way to put it.
Yeah. So keep those things in mind.
Situationally appropriate.
Situationally appropriate details. This podcast has been situationally appropriate, depending on your situation. Oh,
yeah,
that's
Buffalo. Sorry. So, I think we've talked enough here.
Yeah. Well, to wrap it all up, the details matter.
Yes.
Right. So.
Don't overdo it and don't underdo it. It's hard to find that right medium.
Well, we're not writing medium books. We're writing good books.
Yeah, writegoodbooks.com/podcast. And on that fun note, leave us some feedback if you'd like. And check us out at patreon.com/writegoodbooks if you'd like to support us. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.